I have worked with a lot of leaders and teams especially in this industry. And one of the things I see over and over is that many people step into leadership roles because they are great at what they do. They have proven themselves at the field or the warehouse or the packing house. And at some point in their careers, someone say, you know what, you would make a great supervisors. And they get promoted to leadership positions, but very few are handed a full set of tools to become leaders. And this is what this webinar and this course comes in, where we look at facilitation as a leadership approach that focuses on collaboration. And today, what we're gonna be looking at, I'm gonna be introducing to you is the framework that we're gonna be using for our facilitation 101 course this upcoming November. But before we start, I like to do a quick reflection, and I'm going to ask you, and I invite you to open your mics, turn on your cameras, share in the chat, however you feel more comfortable. Think about the best leader you've ever worked with and what made that person a great leader. What things that person did, what characteristics can you describe that make that person a great leader and that make you think of them now that I just asked you this question. Um, Take a couple of seconds to think about that. And in the chat, please write what are those characteristics that make that person a great leader. I like to see 1 to 3 words from each person. What makes the person you're thinking about a great leader? Or you can open your mic and say them aloud. This is a conversation. Supportive, open-minded. What else? Someone who provides solutions, yes. Humble and respectful. Awesome. Someone who listens. Notice how none of these words are job titles or this describes behaviors that leaders have. And that's what's at the heart of facilitation. It's not how we who is leading, is how that person leads, right? And we can lead from with our best intentions, but if we don't have the right tools or the right strategies, it might become more difficult in the process. So let's keep those words in mind because we're gonna be connecting them directly to the framework that we're gonna be working today. But before we continue, I want to define what facilitation is. When most people hear the word facilitation, they think about someone who is running a meeting or guiding a discussion. But facilitation, it's not just standing in front of a group and giving orders or doing all the talking. When we talk about facilitation, we're talking about helping groups work together more effectively. We're talking about creating collaboration, clarifying goals, guiding processes, making sure that all voices are heard while helping teams reach shared goals, reach decisions, or create solutions together. So when we think about participation, think about it as a leadership that invites, when you think about facilitation, think about participation. It's a leadership that invites participation instead of just giving direction. So This is where the framework that we're going to be working today um, is about. This, when we lead from the inside out, we're talking about thinking of that the leadership process starts with you. And it starts with your self-awareness, with your ability to manage your reactions, to how well you understand the impact you have on others. And then it moves outwards to the way you build relationship with other people, the way you guide and empower others to eventually influence the systems and the culture of your organization. This progression makes leadership more intentional because you're paying attention from the very basic foundation of yourself and then move outwards. You're using yourself as a tool to lead and change. Let's take a look at the first layer of this framework, and it's the personal layer, where you become a trustworthy person. This layer is really about who you are as a person and the kind of leader that you aspire to be. It has to do with your values, your strengths, and even the things that trigger you. How aware are you of those, and what role they play in your interaction with the people around you or with the systems that you move in. This is tied to your emotional intelligence as well. How you recognize your own feelings, your reactions, and how you manage them while you are supporting a group in any kind of process. By being aware of these and your behavior, you can have a huge impact on how you're building the relationships and the environment that you create around you. Think about it in a sense that you work in a very fast-paced environment, things change quickly, and maybe, things don't go the way you want. How you react is going to establish, it's going to make people around you react the same way as you do. I'm going to use an example that I heard the other day from in a training that I found really interesting and very simple. The other day I was leading this training, and this warehouse supervisor was telling me that they had a very big rush that day, and they went into a meeting, and he wanted to give some instructions to his crew. And when he went in, he told everything he wanted to do. He thought the meeting went great. And they left to work very quickly. Then 2 weeks later, he realized that the people that were in that meeting were not doing what they discussed they were going to do. And when he started investigating and asking why that was happening, he discovered that several of the people that were in that meeting were wearing earphones, and they weren't even listening to what he was saying. And then he told me something that really struck me. And he said, if I had slowed down and been fully present at that moment and really acknowledged the people in front of me, maybe they would have taken the earphones out. And I think this is such a powerful example of how being aware of the presence that we have and being aware of the people around us can make a complete difference in how we work together. If they have slowed down and noticed their phone and engaged directly with them, then the tone of work would have been different. And let's see how that shows up at the interpersonal layer. In the interpersonal layer, this next layer is where you connect with others and build trust over time. It's not just about being friendly. Um, it's about creating an environment where people can feel respected, can be listened without judgment, um, and where they can feel safe to speak. And even if they are in a space where the people that is there disagree with them, or if they bring opposing opinions. So thinking about this interpersonal space and going back to our example of the earphone example, um, you can you can think about how all this is about building trust and maintaining it. Imagine if the supervisor that had this issue with the earphones had started the meeting by acknowledging everyone and making eye contact, maybe checking in with his team before jumping into whatever the content was of that meeting. That very small act of showing respect, of showing, of demonstrating that the presence of the people that was in that meeting matter, um, most likely must have made people take out their earphones and listen. So by recognizing the people that is around you and recognizing their own self of each person that belongs to a group, creates a trusting environment where everyone wants to participate. You start building the credibility and the commitment from people to want to be part of something bigger. That's where we go to our next layer. That's the managerial level. And in this third layer is where, oh, I was reading the chat, sorry. This third layer is the managerial layer, and this is where you align your personal values and relationships. Let me put the chat here so I can see it. Okay. The managerial level is where you align your personal values and relationships with the works that need to be done. In this layer, facilitation means guiding processes by setting clear expectations, by being transparent, by empowering others to take ownership of their part, to be accountable for what they are doing. It's not about micromanaging, but giving structure and clarity to the people that need to do the work the best way they can. That way, we are leaving space for them to make decisions and contribute their own ideas into these processes that we are establishing. So if we go back to our earphone example and we put this into context, from the managerial perspective, the story reminds us that the need for clear communication is not about delivering a message. It's about making sure that people receives it and understanding. How? By recognizing them before you start even communicating, before you start even sharing a message, right? If the supervisor had stopped and confirmed that everyone was listening and asked a couple of quick follow-up questions to check for understanding, and maybe open the space for people to also ask questions, then the team would have left with more clarity, and that will have empowered them to act on what is expected from them, because it's the message is clearer when you confirm that it has been understood and that everyone is aligned. So at this layer, your job as a leader, as a facilitator leader, is less about doing tasks yourself and more about creating the right conditions where your team can succeed on their own, making sure that they understand not just what they need to do, but why it matters is so common, so common. When we find problems, that the root of a problem is because people don't know why. When people are disengaged of something, most likely they don't know why they are doing it. So if by involving people in processes like this, you get better solutions because you get more buy-in from the people. They are really engaged and they take ownership. So let's go to the final layer, the organizational layer. There you go. And this outer organizational layer is where we look at the big picture. And this is where we influence the systems and the structures and the culture gets shaped by the work, but by how we do the work we do. At this layer, you're making sure that communication, decision making, recognition systems all reinforce the kind of culture you want to see. And in this case, facilitation helps shape those systems by involving the right voices in the room and making decisions inclusively. When we make decisions disconnected from the different areas that are represented in our organizations, at some point we're gonna find blind spots where we're gonna meet these big, huge obstacles and people are going to feel disengaged. So as leaders, as facilitator leaders, we have to be aware of the little universes that exist in our organization, because each person is a universe. Each area is a universe with their own characteristics, with their own needs, with their own interests. How connected are we, and how we are including all these different little universes into our decision making is gonna turn our culture into what we expect it to be, or it can break it down. So going back to our earphone example, if every meeting in the warehouse began with a quick reset, making sure everyone was present, there was no distractions, and that the purpose of the meeting was clear, it would have become a cultural norm. And over time, it would become a habit. And when it becomes a habit, it becomes part of the culture. And by spending a bit more time into doing all these little things in a meeting, you can save time, save resources, and eventually build the culture that you want, because you are recognizing the people that are part of those spaces. Any questions so far about this framework? Okay, let's go then to one exercise that I want to do with you. I know this is a very short and quick webinar, but I do want you to take a moment and think about what we have been talking about. We already covered about the four layers of the leading from inside out work. And I want to do a quick two-part exercise that is going to help reflect on your leadership in action. The first part of this exercise is about your leadership approach. And the second part is where you focus your leadership energy. So let's go to the first part of the exercise, the leadership approach. And I'm gonna ask Alexandra to, in a few seconds, launch a poll that we have. And I want you to think about how you tend to lead when you're working with others. Think about, do you lead from authority? Do you lead primarily by setting direction, making decisions, expecting others to follow? Or does your influence comes from your position or your responsibility? Maybe you step in, give clear instructions, expect everyone to carry them out exactly as you said. Um, do you lead from authority or do you lead from knowledge? And what I mean by leading from knowledge is by teaching, sharing expertise, sharing your expertise, sharing information. Um, in this case, your influence comes from what you know, from the information that you own, the knowledge that you have and your experiences. Or do you lead from process by organizing work, guiding how things get done, and keeping the group on track? In this case, your influence here comes from managing the process, making sure that people know the role and how they fit together. So think about these three different approaches to leadership and think which one feels most natural to you, authority, knowledge, or process. Alexandra, if you can launch the poll so people can participate, I'll appreciate it. And choose whichever you think is your approach to leadership. I have one, knowledge. How many people I have here? Yvonne. I have a couple of people, so I would like to see more participation. Process, thank you. Knowledge, process and knowledge. Okay. It's important to mention that none of these is better or worse than the others. They are all valid leadership approaches. We will use them at different points depending on the situation. Let's share the results. Am I sharing the results? I think so. We have 50% knowledge, 50% process. Authority didn't got anything, but it doesn't mean that at some point we use authority as an approach to leadership. It depends on the situation. Most of us naturally lean on one by default, but again, it depends on the situation. Let's go to the second part of the exercise. And now let's think, where do you spend most of your leadership energy right now? Is it at the personal layer, staying grounded in your values and self-awareness? Is it at the interpersonal level, building trust and strong relationships? Is it at the managerial level, guiding processes, setting expectations, and empowering others? Or is it at the organizational level, influencing systems, culture, or the bigger picture? Where do you spend most of your energy right now? Alexandra, if you can, thank you. At the organizational level, I have one that spends most of their energy right now at the organizational level, interpersonal. Anyone else? Okay, I have one personal, two interpersonal and one organizational. Good. And again, this doesn't, I cannot show oh, here, share the results. One personal, two interpersonal, and one organizational. Great. Again, there's no right or wrong answer for this, but knowing where you naturally, your natural focus, or you naturally focus on, can help you see where there's room to grow, right? If you know, let me go to our next slide. If you know that your default leadership approach and your main focus area, you can start to see both the strengths and your blind spots. For example, if you lead from knowledge, let's say you lead from knowledge, and you mostly focus on the interpersonal layer, maybe you're a great teacher and you're great building relationships, but you might want to strengthen your process skills, so you can guide larger or more complex projects. So identifying which areas we tend to default to help us work on the other areas that we might need to strengthen. So in this case, facilitation gives you the tools to move between approaches and across layers more fluidly, so you can lead in a wider variety of situations. So before we wrap up, because I know we have 2 more minutes, before we wrap up, let's think about what are the key takeaways of this webinar. One is that facilitation is a leadership approach. It's about guiding groups towards collaboration and solution, not just directing them. Leading from the inside out means starting from self-awareness and building trust, empowering others, so then we can influence systems. The third important point that we discussed today is that understanding your natural leadership approach and your main focus layer helps you see the areas where you can grow, and that facilitation skills are adaptable. They can strengthen your leadership style by helping you communicate more clearly, navigate conflict, engage people in working towards shared goals. So that's why we are inviting you to join us in our facilitation course in November. You are going to be learning a lot more about the skills that we discussed today. We are also going to be working with other skills such as conflict resolution, where we are going to how to turn tension into constructive dialogue and results. We are also going to be working on communication strategies. We're going to practice active listening skills, building trust, asking questions. Also, we are going to be working in change management by teaching you how to help teams adapt to new situations and take part in building the culture that you aspire to create. And all this is wrapped up in adult and popular education principles, where you're going to understand how to work with adults, drawing on their experiences and knowledge to grow and strengthen the collective, right? To strengthen your team. So finally, I know we are at the hour. I want to invite you to our webinar on September 10, Read the Room, Lead the Room, where we are going to be discussing how to use your self-awareness in real-time group situations. And then on October 8th, we have Want to Lead Better, Try This First, where we are going to practice facilitation tools that you can use right away. All this in preparation to our Facilitation One-on-One course. So I invite you to go to our website. Alexandra just added the link to the chat where you can go learn more about the course. Feel free to reach out and ask any questions you may have. Take advantage of that early bird special and register.